What is going on, everyone? My name's Andy. Welcome to another FPL video. Today it's the Game Week 24 preview. A bit of a weird time to release this, but there isn't a Game Week at the normal time, so it's not starting on Saturday. It's actually next Tuesday, so I thought I'd try and get this out on Friday, so it's something to watch over the weekend before we do the stream before the Game Week actually kicks off. So a little bit weird to have a midweek Game Week, which is why the video is releasing on Friday. And I'm recording it on Thursday. It's the only time I'm going to be able to do it. So the Spurs and Chelsea match is still playing, so I won't know every outcome of that, but I think we can kind of get around that with the things that we're talking about. So jump straight into Game Week 23. It's a pretty good one. That's two good Game Weeks on the bounce now. Obviously, like a lot of people, have struggled over Christmas a bit, but pretty happy with how it's gone the last couple of weeks. So 76 points. Which takes me up to 1,419 total, which is a 61.6 average, which is pretty good, I think, if you're averaging over 60 for the whole season. But it's only got me a rank of 32.5k. I think in previous seasons that may have been a little bit higher with that kind of average. It's obviously a tough. It's getting tougher and tougher to get high up the ranks. There's more active managers. There's way more knowledge around podcast videos like this, articles and stuff like that. And FPL is just becoming more popular. So at least that's my excuse for why I'm only 32k. But I'm hoping that can continue going forward. Just talking through some of the things in my team. Alonso, we're going to talk about a little bit more in the preview. It didn't deliver again. Obviously, talked about him a lot. Hasn't been delivering for his prices. Possibly new worries with him, and given the FA Cup lineup, but the League Cup lineup. But we'll talk about that in a sec. Robertson's successor. He was my transfer. Keen to Robertson because I wanted to keep Alonso. Although they conceded 3 goals, Liverpool. Bit of a weird match that against Crystal Palace. It was nice for him to get the assist. So he's kind of been a really steady returner for people over the season so far, and I'm glad to have him back because Liverpool no blanks and good fixtures coming up, so he looks really good. Man United on the ball again. If you're not invested in Man United players yet, there's definitely still time. They're a really good price. They've got really good fixtures. They're attacking well, not kind of defending leads and stuff like that, and Pogba just looks like a different man, and Rashford has obviously been given the confidence to play in that number 9 spot, and I'm loving having 2 Man United players in my team and the fact they're returning all the time, and obviously percentage wise really high ownership. I think Fantasy Football Fix was saying that Rashford's now the highest owned player in live teams, so even more than Salah, they're only just. So loving those two. And then the next 2 points I've put on there, Mr. Reliable Salah again. That's exactly the same point as I had last week. And again, he pops up with 2 goals, 15-point haul, obviously 30 with the captain. And it's very hard to, I think, justify not owning him or even not captaining him at the moment because he's just doing so well. And then Sané, very similar. We'll probably talk about him a little bit more in the preview with the Man City assets. But he turns up, goal and assist again. At one point in the first half, I know people were kind of saying he looked quiet, weren't happy with him. He stays out on the wing, but he does look to make runs in behind, and he does come more central at times. So yes, he provides that width on the left, but ultimately he's been in good form ever since he's been in that Man City team. And looks like one to keep. So 12-point haul, really nice for him. And then just to end on a sour point, Richarlison has a disappoint again. Richarlison, that's now 4 blanks in a row. Hazard obviously not performing for the money. So should they go? I guess we're just talking the preview about that. So let's look ahead to Game Week 24, and I kind of said that I was going to try and reduce the amount we talk about blanks and double game weeks in the last video and streams, but they are a massive talking point at this time of the season, and a lot of people ask questions on them, so I won't go into full detail. I think probably a separate video will be good for this. But try and give a really brief rundown of kind of what's happening. So it looks like there'll be 3 blank game weeks. Blank game week is when a team doesn't play because they're in a cup. And obviously their opponent doesn't play either. So in Game Week 27, there'll be a blank for those that reach the Carabao Cup final. So that will definitely be Man City versus Everton blanking. Because obviously Man City went through 10-0 on aggregate. Because of having to record this when Spurs and Chelsea are playing, I'm not quite sure of the result. Currently it's Spurs going through. If that happens, then Spurs and Burnley won't play in Game Week 27. And if Chelsea go through, it'll be Chelsea and Brighton that don't play in 27. Then there'll be another blank in Game Week 31 for any teams that have reached the FA Cup quarterfinals, and then one more blank in Game Week 33 for any teams and opponents that reach the FA Cup semi-final. So most of this info is from Ben Crellin. If you're not already following him on Twitter, then make sure you do. He is the master of blanks and double game weeks. But basically, whenever a team has a blank, they have to have a double game week. So it looks like they'll fall in Game Week 32 and 35. And there could be another one outside of that, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But those look like the likely dates when all this stuff will happen. How you strategize and how you want to play that, I mean, there's different ways of doing it, depending on what chips you got left. Obviously, the fewer chips you've got, the bigger decisions you have to make, and probably the more organised you almost have to be to navigate the blanks and the double game weeks. Because obviously you can have a team that's great for the double game weeks, but those players, or a lot of those players, will blank outside of those game weeks. So you have to look at that. You can do a strategy where you wildcard before the first double game week, and then in the double game weeks you use your triple captain and bench boost, for example, if you've got them. But obviously that means you're lining up a team quite a few weeks in advance in the second double game week, and obviously a lot can change in a few weeks in FPL. So you could, for example, use your free hit in the first one, then wildcard towards the second one. So there's lots of ways to consider doing that. But right now we just know that the game week 27 blank is going to happen. And there's a chance it's moved to game week 25, the fixtures, so there could be a double game week in game week 25, but the turnaround for that would have to be pretty quick. So we'll see what happens there. But basically, I guess overall advice, or what I'm thinking about with these, is I'm trying not to make too many transfers, because transfers are really precious at this time in the season. I made the Robertson one last week, but I know that he won't blank. Liverpool aren't going to blank at all this season, so I know he's good for pretty much the rest of the season. So I bought him in knowing that. So yeah, Liverpool players looking good. I might even look at tripling up, for example. And obviously, you don't want to completely go gung-ho on either way, all in for the double game week and completely miss out on the blanks, and all in for the blanks and then not have a team for the double game week. So you've really got to try and find some kind of balance there if you've not got the chips. And also remember that you don't necessarily need a full team of double game week players in a double game week, especially if you've got the likes of Salah. He could get a monster haul even in a single game week. And same in the blanks. You don't necessarily need to put out 11 players. We'll have to wait and see exactly which teams fall where before we can fully decide that. So moving on into different topics now. Higuain has signed for Chelsea finally. He's coming at 9.5 million. I think that's about right. That's what I kind of guessed on stream, that it'd be 9 to 9.5. I think it's a fair price given he's not been great recently. Obviously new to the Premier League. Hazard's the main man at Chelsea. He's more expensive, so you'd expect Higuain to come in a bit lower. And obviously it's just to match other strikers in the game as well. And also because we're halfway through the season, people have got the idea of which players they want. There's a bit of a template form. So 9.5 I think entices people, whereas if he was 10 or 10.5, that'd really put people off and they'd really want to see what he can do first. Whereas now I expect Higuain will get a few transfers this week. Should you sign him straight up? Do you know what? I honestly don't think it would be the worst call to just give him a go and have a little bit of a punt, especially with the fixtures. It's Bournemouth away and then Huddersfield at home for Chelsea. Obviously, one thing they've missed is a striker that can convert chances, and he's shown in the past that he can definitely do that. Hazard's kind of been missing a striker like that to play balls too. It does mean that Hazard's going to obviously move from that false 9 position back out to the left, but he may even suit that. So I think there's a chance that he kind of reinvigorates that attack. I do think it's probably a little bit of a risk because you don't know how they're going to react. Sarri's come out and kind of not attacked the team, but he's made quite a few negative comments towards the team, which can't be good for morale. So you don't know what kind of mindset the Chelsea players are in. But if you're looking for a bit of a differential, and especially if you can do a straight swap from someone, I'm not sure he's worth taking a hit for. But 9.5 million, I don't think that's the worst punt to go for. And yeah, Higuain could be decent. I probably won't go for him just because of the way I've structured my team. But yeah, I can see a few people going for it. And I think 9.5 is a nice enough punt. And you could always swap back to someone like Firmino afterwards if you wanted to. And like I said, triple up on Liverpool might not be the worst idea. Keeping with Chelsea for the next 2 points, Alonso first. So a lot of Chelsea fans not a fan of Alonso when it comes to his defensive capabilities. Obviously in FPL we love him, or have loved him up until this season, but Chelsea fans not really kind of that happy with him. So he's been benched tonight versus Spurs. So Chelsea put out a pretty much full strength team, but they benched Alonso in favour of Emerson. Now Emerson I think has played all the cup games so far this season, or at least a majority of them, apart from I think Alonso played in the first leg against Spurs. So it's potential that Emerson's just come back in because he's played the cup games and Alonso's getting a rest, and it could be nothing. We're basically going to have to wait and see what Sarri says, but if he makes any indication that it was tactical and Emerson had a good game and stuff like that, then I would start getting worried about Alonso. And I think it depends on your bench. My bench can probably deal with an Alonso benching this week. Wan-Bissaka against Southampton away, Schindler at Everton at home, so I think you can probably cope with him being benched, and then I'll definitely know that if he gets rested or rotated in the league that he probably needs to go. But if Sarri just says it was a bit of rotation, he needed a rest, then I would definitely keep. But Chelsea fans definitely not impressed with him, Alonso that is. So we'll see what happens there. Hazard failing to deliver. So Hazard's a really interesting one. I got him in earlier in the season, but I did say even at the time, he's not that player that's got that eye for goal. You can just see that in the way he plays. I called it killer instinct. He's not a player that wants to score goals. And there's some quite interesting quotes from him this week in I think it was L'Equipe, the French newspaper. I saw various quotes on Twitter. There was Sarri saying that he's not a leader. Hazard was saying that yes, he hasn't impressed Sarri, but then he annoyed his other managers as well because he didn't score enough goals. It's not all about scoring goals. He's kind of happy where he is. I don't know. A lot of the quotes that I saw, I was like, yeah, okay, he sounds like a nice guy. But in FPL, when you want him to like killer instinct, go for goal, get those points, it just doesn't seem to be happening at the moment. Eye test not really passing. Watched the last two games, Newcastle and Arsenal, and just didn't really look like ever delivering. And the stats kind of backed that up. In the last two game weeks, 0.16 or 0.16 expected assists and 0.14 expected goals. 2 shots in the box. Even if you go back 4 game weeks, we're looking at 0.38 expected assists and 0.46 expected goals. So really poor for an £11 million player. Probably not looking at captaining him. Arguably, you could get rid. Even if you've got 2 free transfers, for example, you could trade in to a cheaper midfielder and go bigger up front. Maybe get Higuain or Aubameyang's got good fixtures coming up or something like that. But he does have Bournemouth away and Huddersfield at home. And Higuain's come in. And he scored tonight against Spurs, so he has stepped up and scored there. So for me, stats not looking great, eye test not looking great. Really, that should equal a sell, generally. But Bournemouth away and Huddersfield at home are games that I want to give him, especially with Higuain there. And just hopefully he'll just give a boost to the whole team. Hazard be in his preferred position. Yes, okay, maybe won't score as many goals, but he can still cut in from that left side. And obviously provide assists, and hopefully Higuain will be much better placed to put them away than Morata. So for me, I'm going to keep. I do think he's not providing value for money at the moment. So if you've really got someone on your radar, you could make that swap. I just think if he's going to punish you, Bournemouth away and Huddersfield at home could be those games. And then talking of men that are underperforming on the field in FPL, Richarlison. So similar to Hazard, not really been impressing. Obviously a bit of a cheaper price, so maybe you give him a little bit more leeway, but 4 blanks in a row now. Now he has been a little bit unlucky. I think he's had a chance cleared off the line. I think he's hit the woodwork as well, but he did come off at 64 minutes at the weekend, which is it's something he's not really done this season. Eye test wise, probably not looking great. Everton, probably a team that can be quite hit and miss. But he has had 11 shots inside the box, which is 5 more than Hazard in the last 4, but only 2 on target. And then when you look at expected goals and assists, it's 0.12 expected assists and 0.86 expected goals. So close to a goal, you'd say, over those 4 game weeks, but hasn't got one. Obviously, woodwork and cleared off the line doesn't help. He's a really tough one for me because I talk about not wasting transfers and stuff because of blanks and double game weeks. He's probably not someone I really want to take out. When he's got Huddersfield away, Wolves at home and Watford away. So they're not bad fixtures. Obviously he will blank, like I said earlier, because of that Man City game in Game Week 27. Because Man City have got to the Carabao Cup final, Richarlison will blank. So I think it's tough to hold him. I think we saw this last year. Obviously in the second half of the season he really tailed off after a really good start. He's had a probably even better start this season, but it's starting to tail off. I think the one thing, and some people will call this a trap, is obviously the fixtures are pretty good. Huddersfield away, Wolves at home, next 2. Like Hazard, got 2 nice fixtures. So I think there's an argument to keep him just because of that. And because he has been probably a little bit unlucky to not get any points in the last 4. But then we look at someone like Jota, who people are now looking at, who in his last 4 matches, obviously it's not last 4 games because he's had injuries, but his last 4 matches, he's had 6 big chances. Now I think 5 of them came at the weekend. But 7 shots inside the box, 6 on target, so 3 times as many as Richarlison, and expected goals of 2.36. And he has really nice fixtures as well. No blank in Game Week 27. So West Ham away, Everton away. West Ham at home, Everton away, Newcastle at home, Bournemouth away, Huddersfield away, Cardiff at home. Now I haven't quite looked into what might happen with some of those fixtures with the blanks and doubles, but that's a pretty nice run. And I think the biggest difference really is the eye test. Jota's looking really up for it. There's this slight change in formation for Wolves as well. It looks like they're playing more like a 2 up front. And Jota has that place. And he just looks like a man on form who a lot of us, he was the only promoted player that I actually looked at and had in my team in Gameweek 1. I don't usually go for promoted players, but I read so much that I liked about him that I went for him, and obviously he didn't deliver, but I don't want to hold that against him. Reading up, I think he started quite slow in the Championship last year and then suddenly went on it over a spell and was just good for the rest of the season. So he could be doing something similar now, maybe got used to the Premier League. Perhaps Nuno's found a formation that fits him in the Premier League. So I think eye test looks good. A few concerns from people, myself included, about tripling up on Wolves. The way I tend to look at it is, if I've got Doherty and Jimenez, that makes no difference to what Jota scores. If you think that Jota is going to score well over the next 3 or 4 weeks, it doesn't really matter if you own Jimenez or not. That's a separate discussion. You could trade Jimenez out for someone else. You could just keep him and hope he keeps up his pretty decent record for the whole season as well. And obviously, if they're going to score, they could combo. One gets an assist, one gets a goal. So there's plenty of way to get those points. I do understand that you see triple Wolves and you do worry. You know, if they go missing in a game, they only win 1-0, they lose 1-0. Obviously, you're not going to get any points from Jota or Jimenez. But if I don't bring in Jota this week because I own Jimenez and Doherty and they both blank, but Jota goes nuts again, then obviously I've missed out big time. And you know, people will say he's not going to score a hat-trick every week. He probably won't score another hat-trick for the rest of the season. That doesn't mean that he's not a good buy. I think he's 5.9 or 6 million. It's cheaper than Richarlison, so you do save some money as well that could be pumped into other areas of your team. And I do think, although it looks a bit knee-jerk, and you know, it is a little bit of a knee-jerk why we're talking about him because of that hat-trick, but in fact, if you look at the stats for the last 4 games of his, he's looked pretty good. He's in form. Eye test, he's passing for the last couple of games, and this formation where he's more like a player playing up front, I think is good for him. So I find it not hard to look against him. I think there is reason to keep Richarlison if you're looking to make that swap, but I think there's enough reason there to do it if you've lost faith with Richarlison at this point. And then kind of lastly for the main talking points, you've got Man City, what to do. People, obviously Sané's delivering pretty well. People are maybe looking at bringing him in. I don't personally think this is the best time to bring in Man City players. They've got Newcastle away, who can be tight and organised. Could be tough for Man City to break down. Then Arsenal at home and Chelsea at home. Now, they're 2 top 6 fixtures. I know that Arsenal have been poor in defence. They're not really fixtures you want to bring a player in for. Sure, if you've already got them, like me with Sané, plenty of people own Sterling, maybe some with Aguero. I think you can probably keep through Arsenal and Chelsea. Arsenal in particular, not always looking great at the back for sure. But in terms of bringing them in, those fixtures are not great. So I think you can probably go without. And then they blank in Game Week 27. So it's not the best run of fixtures. And the other thing to talk about with Man City is Mendy is back now. So what to do about him and Sané? Now, I'm not fully convinced, and maybe it's because I own Sané, so I'm a little bit biased, that Mendy's just going to come straight back into the team and Sané's going to be straight back out. I know at the start of the season, Sané didn't get many minutes with Mendy around. And Pep, to be fair, has spoken before about, you know, playing Mendy. Like, obviously, he bombs so far forward, he provides the width. They don't necessarily need Sané. But at the start of this season as well, Sané was kind of out of favour with Pep in general, and obviously he had that kind of issue, if you want to call it that, with the not getting in the Germany squad. So you don't know where his headspace was at, but since Mendy's been out, he's really played extremely well, one of the best players in that team, and they could feasibly play Mendy and Sané together. It's not like they cannot play on the same pitch together. So I'm personally not panicking. It's Newcastle away, I think he'll play that game, then he could play Arsenal, and after that it's Chelsea on a blank. So if I need to get rid of that point, I'm probably not so bothered with it, but for now I think you just have to stick with him and try not to worry about Mendy too much. But obviously Mendy does become an option once he starts, and if you are looking at getting rid of Alonso to Mendy would save you some money, and if you're happy enough that Man City can get some clean sheets over the fixtures, and obviously you've got someone that you can play while he blanks, he could be a good one to look at too, especially as his price has dropped since he's been out injured. Captaincy, I mean, it's got to be Salah, right? Leicester conceded a bunch of goals against Wolves. I tweeted out that even if Leicester conceded no shots and 1-0, and a 1-0 as in they hadn't conceded and they won the game, I would have still captained Salah. I just think he's in great form, even though potentially a few penalties and then there was a tap in. I mean, he's just a player that gets into the right place at the right time. You could bet against him this week. You could go for Pogba against Burnley. That might not be the worst differential. If you've got Aubameyang against Cardiff at home, I think that could be a decent shout as well. Obviously, Hazard's got Bournemouth, got a very good record there. Man City got Newcastle. I do think that would be a tight game. But I think if you've got Salah, it's hard to go against him. He'll be captained by the majority of the game. He can really punish. And I do think he's just going to get points against Leicester. Again, I don't see much chance of a benching. So he's the one to go for. Differentials for me, Pogba against Burnley. He's bombing forward, getting into the box, assist potential as well, and he's on penalties. And then Aubameyang against Cardiff, I think, could be a really interesting differential. We spoke on the stream about going against the massive captain, which will be Salah, and I think this could be the week to do it if you're really trying to smash up the rank with Aubameyang captain. So if you've got him, definitely keep an eye on that. My plans are basically to kind of preach or do what I preach, or whatever the saying is. I can't even remember it right now. But basically, I'm going to save a transfer. I don't think there's anything I hugely need to do. I've got blanks and double game weeks in mind where I want to try and save transfers where I can. Unless there's any big news out of the FA Cup, obviously I've had to record this before those games have happened. So yeah, if something major happens, like a big injury to one of my players, maybe I'll transfer them out. But right now I'm pretty happy. So I'm going to stick. Salah will be my captain for sure. And I will leave the video there. If you've liked it, hit the like button. Always appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new around here. Leave a comment below. I've probably waffled on for ages. If you've got any other further questions, anything that you don't understand about the blanks and the doubles, or if you want to just tell me I've talked rubbish or said something good in the video, always great to hear your thoughts. So yeah, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Good luck in Game Week 24. And I will catch you on a stream at 9 o'clock on Sunday night before the deadline. See you then.